Insomnia and travel are two things that very rarely go hand in hand. If you have been struggling with sleep and you are somewhat scared of traveling, just know that you are not alone. This is a very, very common experience. And in today's video, I'm gonna demystify why that happens, 3 things that you should actually remember, and if you are feeling scared, what you can do about it. If you are new to my channel, my name is Fiona. I used to be a chronic insomniac. It was by far one of the worst experiences that I have ever had to go through. I am now a certified holistic sleep coach, and I'm dedicated to helping other people recover from insomnia holistically because it is possible. Trust me, I've done it too. And before we get into it, I do want to say that this is a really important subject matter for me. I am someone who personally travels so much. I am so blessed to have the opportunity to do so. And I actually just came back from driving our van with my partner all the way from Glasgow to Berlin over the course of 2 weeks. We stayed with family, we stayed with friends, we stayed at campsites, we stayed on the streets in our van. And only just a year and a half ago, this would have been an absolute no-go for me. Back then, I had to control every single element of my sleeping environment, and the idea of having to sleep with disturbances such as noise, including a snoring partner or cars driving by, or light, or even sleeping in a bed that is way too small, because if you have not been to the UK, bed sizes are tiny. I don't know what is going on there. But still, I guess point being that I had to overcome this fear. And in today's video, I do want to empower you that this, well, 1, let you know that this fear is completely normal. And 2, also empower you that if you feel like that fear is there, these are some of the things that I want you to remember and to know. And also how you can also approach this fear so that maybe it is simply 1 level further in your insomnia recovery journey. Okay, let's get into it. To start, we're going to talk about 3 main things of why this is actually happening in the first place, why you actually feel scared at the idea of travel. And if you have seen any of my other videos, you will know that I am a huge promoter of education when it comes to insomnia recovery. I truly believe that it's going to be very hard for you to recover from something that you don't know anything about. The more you can empower yourself through knowledge and education, the easier this journey is going to become, because whenever these anxieties or fears present themselves, you will be able to identify why they are there and what you can actually do about them. So to start, number 1 is to recognize that your brain craves control when you are struggling with insomnia. By control, I mean that insomnia feeds off the idea that sleep is something fragile, and in order to allow sleep to happen, you need to control the environment in which sleep is going to take place, all in the efforts of avoiding wakefulness. Control can come into play in so many different ways. It can definitely be the environment in which you sleep, and it also means that maybe you are avoiding travel just as much as taking supplements to make sleep happen, taking medication, not drinking coffee too late. These are all very clear signs that your brain is hanging on to the idea that sleep is a controllable outcome. The second thing you need to remember, which actually applies to everything in life, is that uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Because you have been struggling with sleep, your brain is going to try and avoid anything that is potentially uncertain from that happening. And whether or not you do or do not go away, of course, that doesn't define whether or not you will or will not sleep. However, your brain feels like there is more certainty in whether or not you would sleep at home versus certainty of sleeping in some foreign environment. And the third thing you need to remember, which is almost like a reminder of what insomnia is in the first place, is that our brain and our survival instinct, specifically our central nervous system, is going to try and do everything possible to avoid a potential threat or any potential future unwanted emotion. Because we have been struggling with insomnia, we have evidence that proves that not sleeping is this uncomfortable situation, and we're going to try and do everything possible to avoid that situation from happening. So the fact that you are fearful of going away on holiday or going away and staying somewhere else is actually a completely normal reaction that is perpetrated by insomnia itself. Insomnia wants you to believe that wakefulness needs to be avoided, and thus anything that's potentially going to threaten sleep from happening needs to be avoided at all costs, including Of course, sleeping in foreign environments. So now that you know why this is happening, I do want to give you a few tools that you can maybe revert to if this presents itself, because unfortunately travel is one of those things that can't always be avoided. And to be honest, we probably don't want to have to avoid it in the first place. Anxiety, fear, these are uncomfortable emotions, and I totally understand not wanting to have them at all. But if they do present themselves, these are 3 things that you can do. So the number 1 thing that I would ask you to do is to simply sit and identify the fear. Oftentimes when emotions present themselves, they simply feel like they come out of the blue. Perhaps someone has invited you to spend a weekend away at their cottage. It sounds lovely, but you would have to share the room with someone else, and automatically you have all of this fear, all this anxiety around the potential of not sleeping. You simultaneously feel frustrated and sad that you can't engage in these activities. And in this kind of situation, I would honestly encourage you to simply identify the fear. What are you afraid of? How is this presenting itself? Are you afraid of sleep disturbances? Are you afraid of not sleeping? What makes you think that you will sleep or that you won't sleep? So that's the number 1 thing. Identify that the fear is there. You do not need to act on this impulse. You do not need to obey or disobey this thought. Simply allow the thought to be there, identify it. And then that brings us into the second thing that we should do. The second thing that I would encourage you to do is to learn and sit with the discomfort. This goes hand in hand with insomnia recovery as a whole. Unfortunately, we cannot escape wakefulness, and because we have identified wakefulness as a threat, then anything that is potentially going to cause that to happen or sleep not to happen is going to feel uncomfortable. However, because wakefulness can't fully be avoided, because sleep disturbances can't be fully avoided, you're probably feeling the discomfort in the present moment of something that would happen in the future. The reason why you feel so anxious and fearful now is because your central nervous system is identifying a potential threat. This is no different to the experience of being chased by a lion. In fact, the way that we experience this in our body is actually the same. It may feel unreasonable, but when we have identified a potential threat, our brain is going to try and do everything possible to avoid that situation. However, because wakefulness isn't truly a threat and sleep isn't something we can control, this is only a perceived threat, meaning that the threat is not real. And in order for us to allow our body to come back to a place where rest and sleep happens naturally, we need to reteach our brain that wakefulness isn't something to fear. But the only way to teach it that is actually if we experience it. If we experience the fear, then we are reteaching our brain, hey, look, I can experience this, and this is actually not harmful for my survival. So if the fear actually presents itself, what insomnia recovery is asking you to do is to truly allow the experience to be there. Oftentimes when fear presents itself, when anxiety presents itself, the first thing that we're trying to do is tell our brains to think about something else. We distract ourselves. We have a dialogue with our brain. We try and disprove that thinking. We're trying our best to say, wait a minute, that is not true. Wait a minute, I can control my sleep environment. Wait a minute, let me do something else because this is uncomfortable. However, if you simply allow yourself 10 minutes to truly just allow the fear to be there. Say your friend has texted you, has invited you for the weekend. If the fear presents itself and you're feeling it in the present moment, allow it to be there. Put your phone away, allow yourself to experience, have all of those thoughts in your brain. And actually, the more you experience these thoughts, the more you allow them to be there, the more you are actually reteaching your brain and your central nervous system that this is not an alarm bell that you need to listen to. And the third piece of advice that may feel scary, but honestly, this will be so powerful for your insomnia recovery, is to actually travel anyway. So the fear is going to be there, but the more you also experience these situations and you live the experience, the more you're also teaching your brain that there is nothing to fear. Will you sleep? Maybe, maybe not. But the more you simply go out and do it anyway, the more you're also teaching your brain that insomnia has no true control over you and that sleep is not something that needs to be controlled, and wakefulness is not something that needs to be avoided. And look, I know that maybe all of these suggestions don't really feel like real suggestions, because oftentimes we click on these kinds of videos and we want a quick fix. We want something or someone to tell us that there's a quick and easy solution for our problems. We are experiencing the discomfort now, but I truly encourage you to remember that you are never given more than you can handle. Everything that is presented to you, the experiences that come to you in life, they are happening for you and not against you. The more you start to shift your perspective and simply look at this as a brand new challenge, the more you're also empowering yourself to take charge over your own life and slowly rewrite the narrative that insomnia has created for you. And to that, I want to also remind you of 3 different things that will maybe contribute to this being a little bit easier. So number 1 is to remember that even if you don't go away traveling, that is not going to guarantee whether or not you sleep or not. Meaning, we sometimes think, okay, I'm not going to go away for the weekend because I want to make sure that I sleep. But the more that you also put pressure on sleep because you're not going to go away, the less likely sleep is going to happen, even if you stay home. So to that, I would say, and to my third point of why you should, or how you can actually approach this and do it anyway, is because whether or not you do or do not go away for the weekend, that will not guarantee sleep to happen. The second thing that I want you to remember is that insomnia is not forever. Sometimes when you're struggling with insomnia in the present moment, it feels like you have permanently lost the ability to sleep. It feels like you have permanently lost the ability to travel. And let me just remind you that that is not true. When you recover, because it is a matter of when and not if, you will look back at this period of time and this will just be a blip of time in comparison to your entire life. And to that, I want to ask you whether or not you're going to allow insomnia to dictate how you live your life in the present moment. Because whether or not you do or do not sleep, what we can control is how we react to that situation. I know that for me, I started to see true change when I started thinking, I need to do things anyway. I need to do things scared. I need to go out and live my life. Like, if this is my life sentence, am I gonna allow insomnia to dictate how I show up and how I experience this beautiful life and this beautiful opportunity that I have been given? And the third and last encouraging thing that I want you to remember is that insomnia recovery is not linear. I often like to see insomnia recovery as a game with multiple levels. If you are experiencing a little bit of resistance around travel, but overall you are seeing huge amounts of change and progress in your sleep, simply view travel and the potential of being away from home as a new level that you can unlock in your insomnia journey. The more you have all of these experiences and the more you are teaching your brain over time that wakefulness is not something to fear, the stronger you are becoming, the more resilient you are becoming to insomnia, and the less you're allowing it to dictate your life. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any further questions, I would absolutely love if you dropped your comments below. And if you ever wanted me to cover something specifically, also drop that below and I will make sure to cover that in a future video.